Del Stone hated his cell phone. It was a necessary evil for his meager online business, but other than the social contacts, he had no use for it. He put his woodworking skills to good use by selling hand-carved figures on eBay, but orders were fleeting. It was always either sink or swim from month to month. He hated his cell phone in general, but as it bleated and vibrated along his nightstand at 7:13 a.m., he hated it even more than usual. The blinds were closed, as they always were, but still the sun found a way to pierce the cracks and edges like a knife looking to penetrate the flesh. The room was hot even at this early hour and would only get worse. Salvation, New Mexico was like that. A small town that was more of a village, a hiccup on the map that would only get visitors if someone were really lost. The 308 residents of Salvation resembled the kind of folks who looked more at home on a wanted poster than a tourism brochure. This was a place people went to get lost. The bleak desert reached as far as the eye could see in any direction. It took a special breed of creature to live here, whether that creature was a bug, reptile, or human. This was the kind of place where you breathed in the flaming sun and bled dust. It wasn't so much a place you lived, but a place you survived, and Del was just fine with that. Still, the heat was already building to furnace-like proportions, and at its peak, nobody in their right mind would be caught outside. Of course, nobody in their right mind would choose to live here in the first place. Del picked up his phone without checking the name and accepted the call. "Yeah?" he said gruffly. "Yeah, you still doing deliveries?" Corey Callows. Of course it was Corey. No hellos or introductions, straight to business. Del hadn't made a delivery in months, leaving himself to rely on his flailing online business to stay afloat. He felt like telling Corey to fuck right off. The man was short, round, greasy from head to toe, and always had something up his sleeve. Skeevy was the word that came to mind, but looking at his stack of piling unpaid bills on the nightstand, Del could use the extra money. "Yeah," he said, "I do. Meet me at Chuck's in an hour." The call ended before Del had a chance to answer. He crawled out of bed and stood in front of the air conditioner, sitting in his window. It did little good at anything besides making a racket, but even a little cool air was better than none. He didn't bother showering. Corey wouldn't notice, and put on his jeans and long-sleeve shirt. Most people thought wearing shorts and a t-shirt in the heat was the thing to do. Del knew better. That was a good way to get blistered skin. You had to protect yourself from the sun. Treat it like a mortal enemy who is trying to assault you at every moment of the day. Man and nature out here had an adversarial relationship. He drove to Chuck's Diner and parked near the front door. The only other vehicle was Corey's Ford F-250 extended cab. The nicest vehicle in town, which would make it the nicest vehicle in the county, since the next town over was technically in another jurisdiction. Chuck's Diner was an institution here. In case the name didn't give it away, the owner's name was Chuck. Chuck couldn't think of a clever name for his business. This kind of heat stifled creativity or anything else that required more than the minimum of effort. He got out and pushed the door of the diner, hearing the ding of the bell above. Chuck's was a typical diner. Booths along the wall that had seen better days. Tables in the center. A bar sat along the back with a view of the kitchen through a rectangular window. It smelled like grease and sweat. Salvation's #1 diner, said a sign hanging on the wall. Being the only diner made that statement technically true. Corey was stuffed into a booth along the right-hand wall. If there were ever a man who could have been the inspiration for Danny DeVito's Penguin from that Batman movie, Corey was it. Piled in front of him were 3 plates. A pancake tower on one, which appeared to be on the verge of collapse, eggs and sausage on another, and one dedicated to nothing but bacon. A cardiologist's wet dream. Del sat opposite Corey, but Corey never looked up from the task of shoveling artery-clogging goodness into his overworked maw. Finally, taking notice, he wiped his mouth with a napkin. Dell, how's it hanging? Red flag number 1. Corey never asked about another person's feelings. Dell's bullshit detector turned up a notch. Been better, been worse. The usual. Corey nodded as if that explained anything. Good to hear it. Want something to eat? Cup of coffee, maybe? My treat. Red flag number 2. Corey never paid. Never. If rumors were to be taken at face value, Corey had enough money and gold squirreled away to buy the entire town twice over. Yet he wouldn't give a starving man a sandwich if he had to pay out of pocket for it. Bullshit detector, level 4. Coffee's good. So what you got for me? Dell hoped this would be easy. Get the details, get the job done, and get paid. No need to make it complicated. It seemed Corey had a different idea. What's the rush, Dell? Good buddy? Shit, we haven't seen each other in 3-4 months? I thought we could catch up a little first. Dell didn't know what to say about that. There wasn't anything to catch up on. Life out here was an exercise in repetition and drudgery. The only local gossip was that Melvin Lancaster had a steer die last week. Not exactly spellbinding stuff. Dell's coffee arrived and he took a scalding sip, just like he remembered it. Thick as mud and as flavorful as water filtered through a dirty gym sock. Well, Corey, if I'm going to make a delivery, we can forego the pleasantries. Business before pleasure and all that. Again, Corey gave his bobblehead-like nod. I hear you. He put down his fork for the first time since Dell arrived and forced a smile on his bulbous face. It didn't look right on him, but Dell remained silent. You're gonna love this, Dell. It's a doozy. Red flag number 3. Corey was smiling. A smile on him was like lipstick on a baboon. Dell was surprised his face didn't crack and break off into pieces. Bullshit detector rising to 7. Do tell. Just hurry it up and get to the zinger. There was always a zinger when it came to Corey. He interlaced his sausage fingers together and placed them on the table. Pays $3,000. His smile stretched further, looking twice as hideous. Dell put down his coffee cup, suitably impressed but still cautious. Most delivery jobs paid less than $1,000, depending on location and what the package was. $3,000? Must be something rare or extremely important to someone. You know I don't do drugs or guns, Corey. We've talked about this. Yeah, but you do dead bodies. What's the difference? Corey shot back, taking another forkful of pancakes and wedging them into his still full mouth. It wasn't a dead body. It was cremated remains, and it was in a proper urn and everything. Corey waved it off. A dead body's a dead body no matter what form it's in. But I never said anything about guns or drugs. This delivery is so simple I was tempted to take it myself. Hell, for $3,000, a man would be foolish to turn it down. Plus, I figured you could use the extra cash. Just trying to look out for a friend. Red flag number 4. Corey's lips were moving. Bullshit detector redlined. Before Dell had a chance to say anything, Corey reached into a bag sitting beside him and dropped a shoebox on the table. He spread his arms wide like he was Vanna White revealing letters on Wheel of Fortune. Dell eyed the box for a minute. When it didn't move or explode, he pulled it toward him and grabbed the lid. Dell glanced up at Corey, but the man was solely focused on an entire pig's worth of sausage. He slowly opened the lid, still expecting some kind of nasty surprise. Inside were a pair of cowboy boots. Nice boots. Alligator skin with silver wing tips. They looked almost new. There were some scuff marks on the edges and scratches along the seams, but that was it. Expensive? Sure, but quality. Dell looked up again, and this time Corey was staring at him with that unnatural grin on his face, bits of sausage hanging off the corner of his mouth. Boots? Someone's paying $3,000 to deliver a pair of boots? Bullshit detector burst. I told you it was a doozy of a thing, didn't I? Man by the name of Carlos Enrique is paying. He's a businessman, owns several condo developments and whatnot. Apparently, one of his employees had an on-site accident. May he rest in peace. Those boots were his pride and joy. Wore them everywhere. They haven't been able to contact the widow, but Carlos thinks she should have them as a token of remembrance. And that's where we come in? Dell asked. That's where we come in, Corey agreed. It's real simple. You drive these boots to Corcoran, find the widow Estrada, drop them off with your most sincere condolences, and get paid for the trouble. 3 days, tops. You failed to mention that Carlos Enrique is cartel related and under investigation for several grisly accidents already. Dell generally didn't bother keeping track of what was going on in the rest of the country, but Carlos Enrique's name had been everywhere just a month ago when a mass gravesite was unearthed right beside one of his condo projects. It seems everyone knows he's connected to the cartels, but nobody can prove it. Corey's smile faltered just for a second, but he quickly plastered it back to full ugly effect. Those are just rumors, Dell. He ain't been convicted of so much as jaywalking. He's a businessman who hires men who might not otherwise find gainful employment this side of the border. To me, that makes him a humanitarian. Dell grunted at that. Yeah, real stand-up guy, I'm sure. Listen, this is an easy job, buddy. Deliver the boots, pay your bills, get laid, go on a bender, whatever you like to do. It's easy money. And Corey did have a point. 3 days and $3,000 at the end. He replaced the lid on the shoebox. All right, Corey. How am I supposed to find this Estrada woman once I get there? It's a small town. You'll have no problems with that. Everyone knows everyone else. There's just one teensy tiny thing, though, Corey trailed off. Here it comes. There's always something else. Never cut and dried when it came to this man. Dell appreciated Corey for handing him off jobs from time to time, but he never made it easy. Oh, what's this teensy tiny thing? Corey belched and chose his words carefully. You, have to wear the boots until they get delivered. Carlos was very adamant about that. Dell's jaw dropped. Wear the dead man's boots to deliver them to the man's widow? He wasn't a superstitious man and had no thoughts either way on the subject of ghosts, but this just felt morbid and a bit inappropriate to him. Why? Corey interrupted. Doesn't matter why, Dell. Maybe it's some kind of cultural thing. Maybe it's some kind of kink or fetish. Who knows? But there could be worse things than simply wearing a pair of fine boots. Hell, for $3,000, I'd wear a Statue of Liberty costume with sparklers coming out of my asshole. That thought made Dell happy. He hadn't ordered food. Hard to argue with Corey's logic, though. Who was he to judge? It was a great payday, and what could it hurt? He slipped off his tennis shoes under the table and put the boots on one by one. Not bad at all. In fact, they hugged his feet as if they had been made specifically for him. He had weird-sized feet and either had to go 1/2 size too small or 1/2 size too large. His feet were always painful and blistered whenever he tried to break in a new pair of footwear. But these felt like pillows for his feet, and they fit him perfectly. Corey was already back at his food. Go get 'em, buddy. Let me know when the job's done. Corcoran was almost on the other side of the state, but Dell didn't mind driving. Not that there was anything to see. Desert was desert, and once you've seen miles of cacti, tumbleweeds, and gray terrain, you've about seen all it has to offer. Still, he enjoyed it. There wasn't a radio signal in this back end of nowhere, but the sounds of tires thrumming on asphalt and the whine of his truck's air conditioner working overtime to overcome the fire-fried air were soothing nonetheless. Being alone on these jobs gave him a chance to think and reflect. So when a voice suddenly whispered in his ear, Del panicked. "You gotta kill him." He knew two things. There was nobody in his truck with him, and there had to be someone else in this truck because he heard the voice as clear as day. He whipped his head around even though the truck didn't have a back seat of any kind. He veered into the other lane but jerked the wheel back before driving into the ditch. His heart was galloping as he slowed down enough to safely pull over to the shoulder of the road. Del exited his truck and checked the back just to be sure. Nothing but a few empty beer cans, almost white from being left in the heat, and his toolbox. Did he really hear a voice? Sure sounded real, like someone was talking right next to his ear, clear as day. "You gotta kill him," he repeated the words aloud. "Kill who? Says who?" He rubbed his face and gave his cheeks a little slap. He must be tired, that's all. He'd been driving for a few hours now and should probably find a place that had good strong coffee. "They're following ya." Shit. He turned around and swung at the same time, absolutely sure someone had snuck up on him. His fists found air, and he almost fell on his face from the effort. There was nobody there, and no place to go, even if there had been. Hard to hide in a desert with only open space all around. A headache started forming at the back of his head. Del felt like this one was threatening to bring the pain like a dark storm cloud threatens a rainstorm. He needed a place to rest for the night. He was getting loopy. A combination of heat, stress, and the hypnotic effects of driving a long distance. He gathered himself as best he could and drove towards the nearest exit. Luckily, there was a seedy-looking motel, and he never thought he'd be as happy to see a derelict place like this as he was. "Oasis Motel, we have HBO," said the rusty sign out front. All the bulbs surrounding it were broken, probably shot out, he thought. This was the kind of place that you just knew had seen its share of spilled blood and perverted revelry. Del parked the truck and got a room. He wasn't sure which was worse, the smell or the decor. Both were hideous and inspired absolutely no hope for comfort or a good night's rest. Home is what you make of it, as his father used to say, so Del didn't complain. He sat on the edge of the bed, which groaned as if it didn't appreciate being bothered from rotting away. He decided to take the boots off so his feet didn't get too sweaty. He tugged on one, but it stayed on his foot. He pulled again, and again. He used leverage with his other boot. It didn't budge an inch. What the hell? His headache came full force, racing from the back of his head to the forefront without so much as a warning. He grabbed his temples in pain and let out a small whimper. Jesus, it hurt! It felt like someone was inside of his brain tap dancing with tiny spiked heels. "You gotta kill him. They're following you." Del growled and let loose a scream. From pain or fear, he didn't know. Both were equally fighting for emotional space. "Who the hell are you? What do you want from me?" he yelled. Nothing in the room stirred, and, as expected, nothing answered him back. Maybe he was having a stroke. Maybe a brain vessel had burst in his head. Or maybe years spent under the incendiary finger of the sun had finally fried his circuitry, and it was time to go to the funny farm. His nose started bleeding as the pressure in his head increased, like a vice being slowly turned with his cranium in its unrelenting grip. He collapsed on the bed with blood running from his nose and a head that was about to explode. Then came blessed darkness. A light, faint at first but coming into focus. Del opened first one eye and then the other. He was staring at a dimpled ceiling with several water stains marring the once white surface. Something sticky around his mouth. Blood. His nose had been bleeding. He remembered slowly the pieces coming together one by one. He lifted his head. The light was coming from a bulb hanging in front of his motel room door. It was night, but what time he couldn't tell. Del balanced himself on his elbows, feeling the room spin as he did so. Feeling better, boss? Del fell out of bed and landed on the floor with a whomp. He let out a groan as the wind was knocked out of him. He turned his head so he was facing where he thought the voice was coming from. At first he saw nothing, just like the other times. Then a bare foot came into view, and another. Someone was standing over him. Just let yourself rest for a minute, the feet said. Wait, the feet said? Del looked up in an attempt to see past the feet and shins of whoever broke into his room. But there was only darkness. No, that wasn't true. Del could see the ugly painting of a sailboat on a lake hanging on the wall. Nobody had a sailboat in the desert. He looked back down at the feet, then back up at the painting. He did this several times until the thought that had struggled to form finally burst forth. If he could see the painting on the wall, that meant there wasn't a body to go with the feet. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to see the wall at all. So, strange voices, possible brain damage, and talking feet. Gotcha. Typical day. Yeah, you have questions. Plenty of them, I reckon. Sorry about using your energy to materialize. As you can see, I didn't get too far. If I would have used any more of your energy, I could have killed you. Nice boots, by the way. They were my favorite pair. Estrada? Del croaked. Juan Estrada. That's me. Well, it was me. Guess it ain't so important anymore. And you're a ghost, spirit, energy guide? Yeah, all the above or maybe none at all. Doesn't matter. We don't have a long time, so let me give you the skinny on what's going on. Del stood up on wobbly legs and plopped down on the side of the bed. Sure. I'll listen to the talking feet. Go on. Well, I didn't have an accident. I was working with the feds against the cartel. Got a bit careless one day, and Carlos found some damning evidence against him in my gym bag. Next thing I know, I'm blindfolded in the trunk of a car, headed off-road deep into the desert. Last thing I remember is the boom from a gun. Now I can't move on until I'm sure my wife is safe. She knows things. Carlos has been looking for her since they killed me. They know the town she's in, but not where she is exactly, and having a bunch of SUVs and dangerous-looking men in suits hanging around a small town wouldn't really work for long, you know? So the boots. I deliver them, and they follow me right to her. You got it, boss. But why did I have to wear the damn things? They're fine boots, don't get me wrong. But why not just keep them in the box? Safekeeping. They planted a tracker in the sole of the right boot. A box could get stolen or lost or damaged. But if they're on your feet, chances are they'll make it just fine. And I couldn't get them off last night. Why? I'm sorry about that. That was all me. I needed them as close to you as possible so I could, let's say, borrow your energy to exist somewhere in this plane of existence. But I also made sure they were comfortable for you. They were that, all right. Okay, so what now? I can dig the tracker out and deliver a message to your wife? That won't happen, I'm afraid. If you try to take off without that trace, you won't make it out of the county alive. You can't see them, but they're following you. Del rubbed his face. So what do I do then? You gotta kill them. That's what I've been saying the whole time. Feet can't smile, but Del thought he heard one in that statement anyway. He shrugged. Okay. It wasn't okay. Not even close. But what else was Del going to do? The chances were simple, really. Deliver the boots as planned and have an innocent woman's blood on his hands, or listen to the talking feet of a ghost and go all action movie star on the cartel. What swayed him to go with plan B was when he carefully pried the sole off of the right-hand boot just enough to see a blinking device inside. It was true. He was being followed. And chances were, once he delivered the boots to the widow, they weren't going to let him live. No loose ends seemed to be the way of people like this. So the plan was set, and as he rolled up into the city of Corcoran, he took off the boots, no problem this time, and put on his sneakers. He parked the truck behind an abandoned-looking warehouse building, leaving the boots behind, got out, and walked the rest of the way to the center of town. There, he checked into a local hotel before inquiring about a gun store. Unsurprisingly, there were 3 in this town of only 9,000 souls. NRA Central. Using Corey's credit card, for business expenses only, and the way Dell figured, this counted, he purchased a semi-automatic AR-10 and a 9mm handgun as a backup. Waiting period seemed to be optional, said the owner with a wink, and he left with his purchases. Walking back to his hotel, he worried that someone might find it suspicious that a stranger was wandering through town with guns on full display. But nobody gave him a second glance. Thank God for gun-right nuts, he thought. Once in his room, he loaded the weapons, familiarized himself with them, and laid back on the bed. Now it was time to wait. And he didn't have to wait long. "They're here," said Ghost Feet. "How many?" Dell asked. 4 as far as I could tell. That's pretty good, actually. That means they didn't suspect anything, otherwise they would have sent a lot more. Guess they figure killing you and my wife will be a walk in the park." "Oh, only 4? Dell said sarcastically. "That does sound like not a big deal at all. Only 4 cartel members against me. Oh, seems totally fair." "I'm sorry," Ghost Feet sounded sincere. Probably was. Dell could have walked right into this blind and never lived to carve another figurine. Juan was dead and worried about his wife, and Dell couldn't begrudge a man that. "It's okay, Juan. Just a little on edge is all. Let's go do what we have to do." And what that was is still unsure. Kill 4 men, deliver a pair of boots, and then cops would be involved. Dell would, at best, be arrested and spend a few days answering hours and hours of questions which he couldn't truthfully answer, or, at worst, be sent to prison for multiple homicide. Home is what you make of it, even if it is a prison cell. Dell was down on his belly, hidden in bushes which lined the edge of the abandoned building's parking lot where he had parked his truck. The AR-10 was aimed as he saw 3 figures scouring through his vehicle. One man held up the boots and started waving them around. "Found him! He's on to us! Better call the boss!" Dell wasn't a gun nut, and he had no formal training, but he grew up around them and fired his fair share as a child. His aim was true, as 3 shots rang out in quick succession. They found their marks, and 3 bodies twisted and fell. Action movie star theatrics, no screaming. It was so anticlimactic, Dell was sure he imagined it. Until a 4th shot rang out, and he felt something like a sting punch his left shoulder. He dropped the rifle and grabbed at the point of impact. His hand came back covered in blood. Shit, he'd been shot. He had forgotten about the 4th man Ghost Feet had told him about. Makes sense. Leave 1 man out front to guard the area. The man aimed his pistol and stepped forward, aiming the barrel between Dell's eyes. "Any last words, motherfucker?" Dell winced in pain but gritted through it. "Yeah. Leave those boots alone." Bang! The man's eyes went wide as saucers as he fell like a tree in a forest. Blood sprayed from between his legs where Dell had aimed his 9mm. Dell sat with his arms around his legs for a long time. He wrapped his shoulder the best he could with his shirt. That didn't change the fact that he was pretty much covered in blood as he slowly meandered back to his hotel room. So far, no sirens, so there was that. Maybe places like this were so used to the sounds of gunfire that they were widely ignored. No matter. He would shower the best he could, grab a change of clothes, and make one more stop before heading home. The bullet wound had already stopped bleeding. It hurt like a sumbitch, but no major damage seemed to be done. Since the bullet passed through, he was only concerned about infections. He'd get it taken care of when he got back home, and Corey could pay for it on top of the $3,000. Celia Estrada cried when Dell delivered the boots. He'd taken the tracker out and destroyed it before carefully putting the sole back in place. She didn't ask about the homemade sling around his arm, and he didn't offer any information. She thanked him, and he knew she would find the note inside one of the boots. The note that told the whole tale and encouraged her to find a different town and get lost somewhere. Would she believe it? Didn't matter. He'd done the right thing, and sometimes that's all a man can do. Dell pulled the truck over to the shoulder of the road. His phone had been ringing and dinging for the past hour, and he ignored it. God, he hated this thing. Like a self-imposed torture device. He stepped out of the truck to stretch and hit accept call. "Yeah?" he said gruffly. "Heard you had a little trouble, buddy." Corey, the king of understatements. "Never mind about all that. I delivered the boots. I expect you to be waiting for me in town with my $3,000 in cash and take care of things at the hospital." Whoa, a hospital bill? Now that wasn't part of the... This time it was Dell who cut Corey off. "I just killed 4 cartel members by myself, suffered a bullet to the shoulder, and tried to comfort a grieving widow. One more body isn't going to matter much to me." He heard Corey spit and sputter for a few seconds before he finally said, "Fine, whatever, just hurry and get back." "Why? You got a wager on my time or something?" "No, of course not. Oh, but I do have an incredible chance for you to make a lot more money. And it only involves taking some jewelry to Texas." Dell shook his head and sent his phone flying as far as he could throw it into the desert. Let the elements have at it. He really hated that thing. The end.